Hey boaters, Keith McGowan here. I am the Outboard Dad, here to help you have a better boating experience. Today we're going to continue on with our Yamaha OX66 rebuild. We're going to get ready and bore out this cylinder. You're going to watch me do the whole thing. I'm not going to shut the camera off. I'm not going to fumble through it, unless I have to blow my nose or something, because I'll probably have my mask on for a minute. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and bore out this cylinder to rest it away. If you remember, we measured in the last episode and we were 0.02 over the piston size. So how far do we want to go? We want to go to 6 when we're finished, because that's what the book says. Now, when I look at the Pro Marine USA, what am I thinking of? Piston directions, right, which don't come in the box. That's why it's good to talk with the guys at Pro Marine USA. They say that 5,000ths range, right? They're always looking at that 4.5 to 5,000ths if it's a forged piston. Now, if it's a cast piston, that's always a little different. So Wiseco pistons may be a little bit different because sometimes they're cast, sometimes they're forged. So you have to make sure you check with that manufacturer as well. And then you have to come up with that size that you're looking for that you believe is correct for your motor. So we're going to that 6,000ths, but I'm going to stop at about 4.5 thousandths, and I'm going to put my rings in for a reason, right? There's a special ring gap or specific ring gap. So we're going to take the rings and put them in the standard cylinders, and let's see where we're at. And once we get to that 4.5 on this, I'm going to check ring gap, because I don't want to go too wide on my ring gap either. So we have to find that happy medium, that zone where we end up with even compression when we're done. So that's what we're looking to do here. Don't forget, today's video is brought to you by the Ansel MR500 diagnostic tool, where you can plug into your Yamaha 4-stroke motor, your Suzuki. They make them for Mercury. Stay tuned. I'm getting the Mercury tool. They're shipping it out to me, and we're going to compare. I have Optimax motor. I have EFI 2-stroke motor as well, and we're going to go through and compare the old OTC diagnostic tool to the Ansel MR500. So the first thing we need to do is start with measuring. I know we did it in the last episode, but we're going to do it again. We're going to double check to see where we're at. I have my 100 grit stones in. I don't have to go too far, so I'm not sure how much dust I'm going to really create, but I'll probably put my mask on anyway just to be safe. So let's see where we're at. Now, if you remember, I only measured one way in the last episode, this way here, and we're at 2,000ths, but let's measure this way here. And we're at 2,000ths. It should be pretty straight because remember, we bored this using our honing stones to not to the size it needs to be yet, but we did take off a lot of material. So it should be pretty straight if I did it right. So let's see what we are down the middle of the cylinder. In the middle we're at 2,000ths. I'm going to go this way in the middle. And we're at 2,000ths. Now let's go down to the bottom. It's very hard to get the bottom. I know I keep saying that. One of these times I'm going to get the camera in there so you can see how I'm doing this. It's just a little tricky. Now my bottom is 1,000ths. So we definitely need to work that bottom out, and I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. I have some modified stones that we're going to use. But let's get this going a little further. We're going to get a couple more thousandths out of it, get around to that 4,000ths. We're going to flip our stones over, right? Remember we did that last time, so we can get a little straighter. Then we're going to start doing some more measuring. So let's get started. I know you're saying stop talking and get to work. Okay, let's measure. See how much that took off. It took off about 1/1000. In the middle, about 1.5 thousandths. Took 2/1000 off down a little further. So this is where we have to be careful. We're going straight, right? Now let's see with the bottom. I'm going to say the bottom hasn't done much yet. Took another 1/1000 off the bottom. So now I'm going to work the top a little bit more, but I don't want to go too far. So I'm already at 3/1000. Remember, I want to stop at like 4, 4.5. So I'm going to work the top a little bit more and the bottom a little bit more. But I'm going to flip the stones over to do that, to try and keep it straighter. All right, let's see where we're at. We're at 4/1000 right there. Go down a little further. About 4.5. We're at 4/1000 there. So we're at a point now where I'm getting pretty close to where I want to start measuring my ring gaps. And at my bottom, oops, keeps popping off. It's very tricky to get in here. My bottom, I'm at 3/1000. So I am removing some from the bottom because I flipped the stones over, but it's only going to go so far because it's all the way at the bottom. So now I'm going to switch to my other stones, but first let's check that ring gap and see what we got. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the standard set. I'm going to make sure you keep track of these as well. As soon as I find my razor knife. Thought I had another one here. Must have Taking it somewhere. Just making sure the label says standard. So I'm going to take one ring first. I'm going to clean the cylinder here. We're going to go in the standard bore first and see. Now these have a nice little thin layer of that WD-40 because if you remember we bored it with that last time, so it's not a dry cylinder. And I'm going to put it in this way so that we can measure with our feeler gauge. Then I'm going to line it up with our piston so we make sure it's straight. And I'm going to look at my ring groove to make sure it's straight all the way around, so my ring groove is even all the way around. Now we're going to get our feeler gauge out and look in our book here. Let's see what our book says for this. Piston rings. End gap. So it's showing me 16 to 31 thousandths. All right, so the limit is 31 thousandths. So it's looking like we need to be between 16 and 31 thousandths. Just looking to see if there's any other. So 1996 and later says 0.024. Doesn't give me a range for 96 and later. So I think if we get in that range of, I don't want to be down to 16. I don't like making them that tight. And we probably won't anyway because we just gave this a little hone. So, and it has some wear on that cylinder too. So we're down far enough that we're down where the rings ride. So we're going to check and see what we have to see if we're within this range. So let's see, we'll start with 20 thousandths, see if we can get 20 thousandths in there. So 20 does not go in there. So let's go down to 18. 18 does not go in there. 17. 16. We got some tight ring gaps here. I'm all the way down to 14 and it's not going in there. So let me make sure, put my cheaters on, I'm not doing something stupid. Yeah, that is a tight ring gap. Let's look at that book again to see, make sure we're right. I'm going to try 12. 12 doesn't go in there. It's 7. Okay, 7 goes in there. Let's try 10. So 10 is a tight fit, right? So 10 goes in there and holds. So that is really, really a tight ring gap. So is it the rings that are the issue? Let me check the book again and make sure. Okay, so ring end gap. The limit, so it's given me 90, 91. It's probably for that carbureted motor that they had, the VX motor. 92 to 03, which is in our range, says 12 to 16. 12 to 16. 1996 and later. me make sure I understand what later means. I'm going to Google that right now. 1996 and later. So later, does that mean 97, 98, 99? Or does it mean 95, 94, 93? I'm going to ask ChatGPT. Let's see what they say. So, you know, these are simple things, but you want to make sure you're thinking right. You know, sometimes it's a Saturday morning and you're busy, or you're, I don't want to be wrong, right? So we just double check. That means later. That means from 1996, 97, 98, 99, right, and later. So when I look at that, my limit is 0.024, but it says from 92 to 03, which is the range we're in, this is a 98, it is 12 to 16 thousandths. So we're at 10 thousandths here. So I'm going to check a couple other cylinders. Let's see what we get on those. It's going to take some time to do all this, but I want to see where we're at with these. I also may, actually I'm going to sit this down a little further inside now. Let's go a little deeper. See if we get a different reading. I'm not going to go too much deeper, just so I can make sure my piston is level. All right, so now I know my piston is even. Let's see what we got there. Or maybe I didn't have it in there the right way. So here's my 10 thousandths. And 10 thousandths does not go in there. Here's my 8 thousandths. And that barely gets in there. So let's try the next cylinder. Make sure we make it straight and level. Make sure I don't have some crazy carbon on here that's cocking my ring. So we got in this one. I'll try with the 8 thousandths. That goes in. 9 thousandths is tight, so we're pretty close to the same, which I like consistency. Let's try it over here. So 9 thousandths goes right in there. Let's go to 11 thousandths. And that's tight fit, but it does go in. Let's go to 12 thousandths. All right, so let's fan this out the right way here so I'm not fumbling. So there's 9, 10, 11, 12. So let's go to 10 here. 11. All right, so 11 is a tight fit, so we're somewhat consistent. Then what we're going to do is we're going to compare to an old ring set that came out of this motor. Okay, so we can't get 11 in there, but we got 9 in there. So again, we're consistent. So we're pretty consistent that between 9 and 10 thousandths, which I like the consistency. we are going to get wear when this fires up. So let's try my 9/1000ths in here. 9/1000ths is tight. We'll go with 8. And 8 is a little tight in there. So let's get, I'm going to put this back so it doesn't get lost. I'm going to take one of the old piston rings off, that obviously not one of the ones that had the bad cylinder, and let's compare and see what ring gap we were getting, because we know what compression we had with that ring gap. Let's check it out. All right, so let's throw this. This is one of the standard rings that came out of the motor. And let's see what we get here. So remember, we did have 110 pounds. Actually, I didn't do the compression test on this. We went off of what the head said, and I think it was 110 pounds and 60 on the one. So I want to put it in the same place as my first measurement. All right, so we're not in a different spot in the cylinder. Well, let's see what we got here. By the looks of it, it looks like it's a pretty tight gap. Let's see if 8 goes in there. 8 goes right in there, no problem. 10. 10 goes in, no problem. All right, we're going up. Let's see what we got. Let's go to 16. Does not fit. We'll go to 14. 14 goes in there. 15 is a tight fit. So, sounds to me like the max is 24 is what the book says. So this really didn't have a lot of wear on it. I'm not sure why that one piston failed, but sounds like we need to be, if it says in the book from factory, it is 12 to 16, and I'm 15 right now. And 24 is our max. I'd like to be around 16, 18, right? So how are we going to do that now? So what's the most time consuming, and what is going to be the most benefit long term for the engine? If you remember, on our old cylinders, we already went in with the 100 grit just to get some deeper scratches in there to hold some oil. Then we did our 200 and 300. So I think the best course of action would be to go at it with my 300 and try and take a hair more off just to get to that gap that we need. I think what we'll do is, now we know where we're at with this, now let's put the oversized one ring in. So I'm going to make some notes here. I'm going to write down where we want to be. Right in my book here. So WTB, want to be 18. I'm going to say 16, 18 is where we want to be, because we were 15 on this one. So I don't want to go, again, I don't want to go too tight, because I don't want this to heat up, have them touch. If it overheats a little bit, I want to give a little bit of leeway. And at 15 here, we had really good compression on this engine. So I'm okay with losing a couple of PSI of compression to have longevity out of the motor. Maybe you'll lose 2 miles an hour out on the water or something like that. So I'm not building racing motors. I build these motors for longevity. And remember, they are going to wear in a little bit too once we get started. It also helps me because that 1 or 2 cylinders that were a little bit out of round, we're going to get even closer to spec with because of the way these rings are. Now maybe that's the way ProMarine makes their rings, or they're just closer to factory, because it looks like factory is 12. So that's the way I'm going to go about this for now. So I think what we'll do in our next episode is we'll continue. Actually, before I let you guys go, I want to measure this last one. Let's put the ring set in our oversized. We'll pull that ring set out, and let's see what we end up with for that cylinder for where we're at now, because we know we're only about 4 thousandths at the top here. I'm going to save my standard ring, my standard used ring. So I want to be between 16 and 18. So we'll put the book aside. And let's open up I don't want to mix up my standard rings with my oversized rings. So I'll put this out of the way. Put my oversized one over here. Let's open this up. Now remember, we're still kind of rough in here. We're at 100 grit, but let's put this in. It's nice how it's marked on the ring too. It says 50 because that's the metric size that it's oversized. So let's see where we're at with this. And I can't even get it in there because there's not enough piston wall clearance yet, right? So that has no gap whatsoever. So we know we're on the right track, and we haven't gone over too much yet with our bore. So that's what we'll do next. I want to put this over here so I don't mix it up. So next we're going to continue to bore this out. We're going to get to probably 5 thousandths now, but the first thing I'm going to do is work the bottom of the cylinder. And to learn how to work the bottom of the cylinder, you got to watch the next episode. Please like, subscribe. Don't forget my used outboard motor buying guides for sale on Amazon for $20. It's not a deep dive into specific motors. It is a grab and go quick guide that can save you thousands when you're looking at a motor or an outboard or a boat with an outboard that you're looking to purchase. Please like, subscribe, send me any comments that you have. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Have a great day.